welcome everybody, and if you are watching, thanks for joining us today. And thank you. Today I have guests.
Thank you for having us.
And we also have 8-bit versions of all. Oh, you can't even see any of this because I have the overlay all set up. So I've got the 8-bit nerdy teacher. I've got the 8-bit Adam Bellow, and you guys can't even see this and appreciate this. But my goal for next time, if we do this again, is to actually animate them so that while you're talking, I can actually make it, do like a little bit like this.
That's pretty awesome.
Yes. And the best part is, since you guys can't see it, you won't even know when it's happening. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
All right, so this is just going to be kind of sort of a beta run of doing the panel format. We're going to be taking this, we're going to be stripping the video out of it and releasing it as a podcast as well. So we're going to be doing about a 15, 20-minute broadcast or so and kind of floating around a variety of topics. This is not going to be the most structured show in the world, but... Nick, right before we went live, started to show off a little something that he had just made. And that is incredibly interesting to me, considering that Adam just recently got a 3D printer. I have a 3D printer on order. And Nick, you've used a 3D printer before, correct?
Yes, I've got 3D printers in my house, and I use them to print the case and stuff for this guy here. So this is what's awesome. Called a Pi Girl Zero, or as I named it, it's a nerdy Pi Zero, as I messed with the design a little bit. And it runs off of one of these guys, which is a Raspberry Pi Zero. So ordered the kit from Adafruit, and because the Raspberry Pi Zero doesn't actually have full USB, it's got micro USB, you have to actually put in a USB, and then because it doesn't have an audio port, you need to actually supply a USB audio port. So if you want to listen to the fun games that play, and turns on, loads up, charges with a micro USB, and I can play all the old games that I managed to play in my olden days of Nintendo and Super Nintendo and Atari and whatnot. And it is a good time. It's a fun thing when you're on really long flights.
Did you connect like a little bit of is there like a small breadboard in there? Or are you actually soldering? You're not soldering directly to the chip, are you?
You are some of it. You are soldering to the Pi itself. You need to connect all the buttons and everything, and then you have to wire up the screen to the Pi as well. So. Cool. Yeah, there's soldering in my full Pi Girl 2. Adam's seen that one. You've seen that one as well.
Yeah,
it really looks like a Game Boy. It's the same principle. This is just a smaller screen and smaller components a little bit. But yeah, it works nice. 3D printing is an art, so you have to always constantly tweak things, as you guys find out with the printer. But works good when you're sitting around. You want to play some video games. I can play old school Castlevania on this and enjoy it thoroughly. So the trigger force is strong within me. Here you go. Pull up.
So the Pi Zero itself, $5 normally.
Yep.
If you have a micro center near you, you can buy one per day for $1. Limit of one, right?
That's amazing.
Yep.
Yeah, I got to start driving by Micro Center on a daily basis and picking.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So, but here's my question. So, obviously you printed out the enclosure, but with the screen and the buttons and the rest of the bits, what's the all-in cost on that?
Oh, it was easily, I would say, $75, maybe. Like one of the most expensive pieces is probably the lithium battery.
Yeah.
And depending on how big of a micro SD card you want.
Yeah.
So that's, and usually on Amazon, sometimes you'll get them on pretty cool sales if you can order them in bulk, stuff like that. But the more games you want, the more size that you want. So like a 32 gig SD card, that'll run you $30 or something like that, like a nice unit. So that within itself can take up almost a third of the cost potentially, depending on what you're doing. So, but the printing costs, you need a 3D printer. That's the thing. So that's an extra cost if you don't have one and you outsource that. But Adafruit has a full kit that you can buy and then just assemble. So I got the design plans from them, and you can put it all together. So so their kits are actually really nice, and you learn a little bit of fundamentals about putting it together. Sort of like when you made your arcade table, which is like my next big time project. Is to I basically done the micro versions of them. Now I just need to do a full section.
But what's funny is, once again, it's being the one that we've got right now. I mean, the one that I ran, had back in my house probably a little over 10 years ago. I mean, it had a full PC sitting inside of it. The one that the mini one that we built with Aiden, it's running off of a Raspberry Pi.
It's crazy.
You don't need anything more than that. I mean, unless you want to play like whatever, Killer Instinct or something like that. You know what I mean? So
you actually benefit from having a slower chip. Like the new games, you have to downclock the CPU because the games run so fast that like Mario will just go.
Well, and the funny thing is, some people actually really want those old monitors, the ones that actually are
the CRTs.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, if you overclock the Pi 3, you can play N64 games without any trouble. So you can play GoldenEye.
Crazy.
Which is still kind of wonky. You need to get the right controllers. I ordered some SNES controllers, which are great. But the actual N64 ones, you need to play GoldenEye. They're designed with the analog stick in the center and stuff like that. So I ordered some of those too, because I also have my own desktop console as well that I just plug into a TV and play. I've got too many of those things. Really is. Just because I can't make it. Like the next thing that I'm making is I kickstarted this, so you can turn an old Nintendo cartridge into a RetroPie gaming system. So the guy will send you the tools. So I went on eBay and I bought an original gold edition of Zelda.
Nice.
And it came with the plastic case. So
awesome.
When I get the Kickstarter in, you open this up, you take the chip out, and then you drop the Pi in, and then this part here will be where you'll plug in the USBs and stuff. So basically, I'll be able to take this, carry it around in this guy, and then basically play all my games that I want on here.
That's too funny. It totally reminds me of like way, way, way back in the day. This is, mind you, pre-Discovery, back when I was in the school district. At one point, back when people still had regular standard iPods, you know what I mean? I think
you could mod them out, right?
Yeah. Well, I took a combat cartridge from Atari 2600, popped that sucker open, crammed a 9 volt or 2 inside there, and then put in a USB enclosure. And I wrote about it on Teach42, and not only did that get like a ridiculous number of hits, Wired actually covered that at the time. You know what I mean?
Wow,
so
that's awesome.
I have a great appreciation for just cramming things in video game cartridges.
Yeah,
you know.
Be careful, you could hurt yourself. I don't know.
Hey, now.
It's late on the East Coast. It's like, you know. Sorry.
Yeah. So it's funny because the only thing right now that I really want to print as soon as I get the printer is a friend of mine turned me on to these. Have you guys ever seen these? The fidget spinners?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a 3D printed design with a weight here, weight there, and then inside the center part is basically some ceramic bearings, and then you can just spin it. And it will spin this one spins for over 2 minutes.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Which is a long time. However, because the enclosure is 3D printed, I've already had to super glue it 3 times, and I got it today. So it's a little fragile. So I'm looking forward to see if I can kind of come up with a better design myself, or to play around with that somewhat. I saw somebody do one all in brass. That was the bat symbol. But,
that's so cool.
You know, I think that could be kind of fun, and an interesting little physics lesson in terms of balance and weights and centrifugal force and so on and so forth. So I'm looking forward to kind of playing around with that. Adam, what do you have your eye on, 3D printer-wise? I mean, now that you've got it, I know you said you've done Yoda and Pikachu.
Yeah, I got a Yoda and a Pikachu, and I have, as Nick was mentioning, it's a little fragile. As you mentioned, it's fragile. I have a 3-legged horse and a horse with no tail. The boys wanted horses, so I was like, okay. What do I want to do? I mean, I would definitely love to do.
I kind of was hoping you were going to say like you designed a three-legged horse. And
No, I wish I did. Yeah, I designed it.
yes.
No. But I told the kids, I'm like, the leg fell off. I'm like, we'll just glue it on. It'll be like a three-legged unicorn. It's kind of cool. So I definitely would love to do like one of the Raspberry Pi enclosures. I think that's super awesome. I kind of want to do. I saw these toys the other day at the Nintendo store in New York. They have like the tube, like and the Mario figures. I was kind of thinking of like 3D printing like the Mario scene of like the World 1-1. Mm-hmm. And then figuring out how to make stuff. Like I figured learning the CAD piece of it to like go in and actually build your own stuff. I was telling Steve before, I learned how to like do structures, like fix the horse that was falling down. I figured out how to do like half-etched like supports, but I don't know enough about it yet. So I feel like on a weekend when it's raining and I could be like, oh, let me spend a half hour figuring it out. But it's fun. It's super cool.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, that's the other thing is along those lines with the not the horse, but there's a lot of like little things around the house that I've been kind of jury rigging to make work, and now I'm starting to kind of think about like, well, all right, well, when you can actually design it, what should it look like? What should it function? You know what I mean? How I can't even tell you how many times I go into a hardware store saying, all right, I know I need to organize this handful of stuff. You know what I mean? And just looking around and seeing kind of what catches my eye, what could I MacGyver together. It's a very different mindset from actually thinking to yourself, all right, so what can you actually design to suit the specific needs that you have at that time? So
yeah, very cool.
I've always just enjoyed, since I got the 3D printers in my house, just playing with 3D design and really going through that like design process of taking what someone did and then tinkering what someone did and then figuring out how they made it and then trying to recreate it. Like that whole design process is really giving me a different look at like how I do lesson planning and things. It's the same concept of, oh, I saw someone do that, I want to do that. Okay, but I'm going to do it a little bit differently. Okay, how do I recreate what they did from the start? So it's that same process, whether you're lesson planning or 3D designing. It's that idea of you have to start somewhere, and it's okay to start with what someone already did and then try to make it your own. So when I take these designs, like the Raspberry Pi cases and whatnot, and I add my name into it, or I create a little puntastic phrasing on top of it, or then I add for the Pi Girl, they didn't have a outlet for a headphone jack. So I created one in there and I hacked the design of it, which was not part of the process. And, those are the fun things. And the more that I work with code and I take someone's code, but then I tweak it because I want to do something a little bit differently. And, when I published my first code on GitHub, I was like, holy crap, like I'm an official coder. Like I took things, I created things, and it's like an official code. And, I think that's the fun thing is that by having access to these different tools, it's allowed me to explore other tools that help me utilize them. So, when people talk about getting a 3D printer in school or, using Raspberry Pis, I go, it's not the tools itself. It's how you use these tools and what you'll use to make these tools worthwhile. It's like when I talk about a copy machine, I said, if you were to take a painting and just to make copies of it in the copy machine, you wouldn't marvel at the copy machine. You would hopefully marvel at the design of the painting. The painting's the beautiful thing. The printer just printed what you designed. The design is actually the powerful part of it. That's the creation. The printer is just spitting out what you did. So there's really more value in that design process I see than the 3D printer, which is just recreating what you already did. So that's what I've kind of learned over the past couple of years of playing with these things.
Yeah. I know Aiden at one point came up with some idea. We never actually followed through on it because but I remember he said that he wanted to, he couldn't figure out why Lego minifigures, why the arms only go up and down instead of being able to swing out. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Or swing all, you know what I mean? And go into more positions. And we started kind of brainstorming and realized that you could kind of do something like a ball socket sort of thing.
Yeah.
Where if the ball is on the top of the arm instead of the inside of the arm. And what I don't know is whether the printer is going to be able to do something that fine, that small, without
some printers can. Some printers can, some can't. What did you order?
I ordered the Prusa i3 Mark II.
Oh, I just read about that. Where did I just read about that?
Please tell me you didn't read that. It sucks in there.
No, I actually read a good review of it. Okay, and I think it might have been in Maker Magazine.
Okay.
I hear they know one or two things about those printers.
Yeah.
You would hope.
I think that's what I read.
Yeah. So, but then I thought, honestly, even if we can't do it at that size, if we scale,
even a larger scale, yeah.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Just if nothing else as a proof of concept,
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see. Have your kids started getting into it yet, or not quite yet?
Well, every day they want me to print them something, and I try to explain to them, it's like, that's not what it's here for. Like, we print a couple, like, on the weekend, if you're really good, you can print. I mean, it takes forever.
Yeah.
The first time they wanted, I forgot, I think it was a Yoda, but I started printing it, and it was like a full, like, 6-inch by 6-inch Yoda, and it's solid, and it's, like, super detailed. And it, like, 2 hours, it did, like, the base, like, just the base level. And I was like, this is insane. Thank God it messed up along the way. And I was like, okay, we're going to make it much smaller. Like, first lesson, figure out how to scale. It's like, oh. Yeah, no, but they're really into it. They're really into the idea. And to me, like, it's just fascinating, the concept of making things from another thing. Like, the idea that you can replace parts of the printer with this is nuts. So one of the first things I want to look at is the arc that brings the spool from of the filament into the head snapped a few times. So I want to make a support for it. And I'm like, well, I could print a support for it. I don't have to, like, jury rig my own thing. I could just make a little like an L-shaped bracket out of 3D printing, and it'll hold it up. So yeah, they're fascinated by it. I love the concept of it, and I'm enjoying playing with it. Ironically, people have done a whole bunch of, like, Breakout EDU printings, so I'm excited to, like, print out some of that stuff. Like, people have done. There's a maze. I actually saw this, Steve, at the Discovery thing that I went to, the Dennis Eye, this past summer. Mm-hmm. They created a maze, and it has a compass on the front. And you put a little coin in, or a little ball that you 3D print, and you can't see in it, but you turn it in different directions, and that's how you open the directional lock. So, like, whatever the maze is preset to, like, up, left, right, whatever, you have to, like, hear it and feel it. And it's fascinating to me. I was like, that's insane. So now I get to print out one and play with that a little. It's cool.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that idea of being able to print things that normally you just quite simply couldn't necessarily exist. You know what I mean? Somebody else, this buddy of mine who was kind of showing me around, printed out one of these, like, gyroscopy sort of things where everything it's intertwined in a way that it just you couldn't normally put that sort of thing together. You know what I mean? And also the materials. Materials are crazy. The wood filament.
Yeah. That's what my one Raspberry Pi Game Boy's made out of. Is a wood filament. It's awesome.
It's crazy. Cool. It actually, like, it smells like wood.
And it stains really well. I stained it darker, so it stains really well.
That's totally bananas. Yeah, he had a box that he had made, and he sanded some of it down, and honestly, it was pretty much indistinguishable at that point. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. So here's my question to you guys: How right now? Listen, all three of us are have one or are getting one, and
that's awesome.
You've had one for a while, Nick. This is not new to you. But how long before this becomes as mainstream as inkjet printers were?
My guess on that is 2 to 3 years. I think that the price point is getting to the point where anyone that wants it can have it. They're getting to the point where, like, that Cube one, Steve, I think you played with the original version of that they were selling at Staples. When that's $100 and it's like a Keurig coffee thing where you snap the little filament inside a little basket and press print on whatever it is. I mean, now a lot of them are wireless. You don't have to actually hook them up the same way. I mean, I'm sure Nick has a more detailed, thoughtful answer to this, but like, I feel that the price point got to the point where I was like, oh, well, that's almost like a impulsy type of thing. Like, oh, I've always wanted to play with them, but when MakerBot first came out, like, I remember Bree Pettis putting the replicator out there, and I was like, oh my God, that's amazing, but it's $5,000. And now when it's like, oh, this is $200 and the filament's $100, and I was like, or, for like a whole set of filament, I was like, oh, well, that, dude, hell, I want to try that. So I think we're getting closer.
No, I agree. I think when we look at it, for the average consumer, I mean, it's a hobbyist thing, though. I mean, it'll always be at home as a hobbyist's tool to do and create fun things. For schools, they will definitely become more commonplace within the next 2 to 3 years. And the price point is the big one because, like Adam had said, it's the time factor. My school, we've got 1, 2 now, maybe 3 coming. And, when you have a class of doing 3D design and everyone wants to print and each print takes 3 hours, that's being generous. I mean, a class of 30 at 3 hours, there's only so many hours in a day, and a teacher can only monitor a printer for so long. So, you'll really need to see printers increase in speed and decrease in price so that you can purchase multiple of them to accomplish supporting like a class size.
And I think it's also purpose. I mean, thinking of a consumer or classroom, I think that the idea of purpose, obviously you could say in the classroom, like, oh, the idea of design thinking and creating things obviously is the answer. But when it comes to a consumer good, I mean, I had heard that places like IKEA, like I buy a Schlafforgen, which is another name for a table, I guess. I don't know. So like you buy this thing and a part breaks, like you can go get the Schlafforgen, screw that you can only get, or the bolt that you can only get from IKEA. So if there's not an IKEA for 100 miles from you, you could print one. And I think that we're at that point now where people are putting schematics for machines. My favorite story was I was visiting Andrew Coy at Digital Harbor Foundation, and he was showing me there was a 3D printer that was broken, and they were using the 3D printer next to it to print out all the parts to fix the 3D printer, which to me was like, that makes so much sense. It's also insane. Like, it's just like, it's so cool.
Well, right along with it, I mean, I had that exact problem for, there's a robot I have. It's an Easy Robot, EZ Robot. It's called the JD Robot. And I would take it with me to do makerspace sessions and to show people. And TSA did not treat it very kindly one trip. And the shoulder joints broke on the robot. And there were little plastic pieces that kind of slid in. And I was like, no. And then I remembered that they posted all the 3D files on their website so that you can take and hack the robot as much as you want. So I went and I printed off new shoulder joints and unscrewed the broken ones, put the new ones in, and boom, fixed. Slid right in, was perfect. Didn't cost me, ordering, $20 and shipping another $5. I mean, I saved myself time and money by just printing them off. Then I was like, ooh, what if I made them bigger? What if I added, then all of a sudden I realized, wow, I could really make this robot look however I want because of the design of the product itself. Was designed to be interchangeable parts. But that ability to just do that, like you said, Adam, it's perfect. I mean, that's what it's going to be for. The handle on your, table breaks and your desk breaks or whatever. You can 3D print a knob in 20 minutes. I mean, just print that bad boy off. And as 3D scanners, and there's decent software on phones that's already available for you to scan pieces and then upload those up to print duplicates. I mean, that exists. I mean, that's here. So your estimate 2 to 3 years, I feel pretty good with as well. But right around there, and we'll have big, huge leaps and bounds after that. And with virtual reality being the thing like right behind it, being able to 3D design in virtual reality to actually use our hands to mold and sculpt things, I think is like a logical connection that you'll see 5-10 years down the line.
Have you guys tried that, by the way? Have you done like any of the like HTC Vive or the Oculus, the painting programs?
No, I've not. I've seen them. They look amazing.
Oh my god! So I got an Oculus Rift recently, and I'm like, yeah, it's gonna be cool. It is hands down. And again, this is not. I'm not giving you the. Let me talk about the educational value of it. But as a technology, it far exceeded anything I thought of, because it came with or I bought the touch handles with it, and you see these virtual hands, and there's a drawing program where like your one hand, you hold the trigger and you look at it, and it's a palette of colors, and you poke the color what you want, and you hold the trigger, and you literally are painting in this virtual space. But then you could walk around your own painting and stretch it and move it over. It is freaking mind blowing. And it's just insane. I mean, so you're all welcome to come over here and try it. But like, if you get a chance, it's super cool. Super cool.
See, and I love the idea that somebody could like create something like that, and then all of a sudden make a scaled down version of it, with a 3D printer and all that. And I think I see that. To me, it's funny because I don't think the price is an issue anymore. I mean, I think the price is relatively. I mean, it's not outlandish. I'm buying one that's all pre-assembled and everything for like $800 or $900, and that's from the maker, so I know that's actually a higher price for what this one is. For me, I think, Nick, you were kind of alluding to the speed. Well, both of you, actually, the speed factor of it. Most people aren't going to want to hit print and then hope that it works overnight. The reliability of it, of knowing that when you hit print, that when it gets done, it's going to be what you want it to be. And then the other issue is, and mind you, I don't have one, so I'm not using it on a regular basis, but the software, it has to get dummied down to the point where my mom doesn't need to worry about fill percentage and structure. Do you know what I mean? Those are all sort of those barriers. Because if they can solve, the speed and the software and so on, the ease of use and so on, I would anticipate, like you just said, that we could download this piece from IKEA, and then all of a sudden you've got your table going. But why not be able to download or to actually have some DRM style files and buy your minifigures from Lego and just print them at home directly? You know what I mean?
That's
Yeah, I think that's got a huge market when you can. In Monopoly, if you want your blue houses and your blue hotels or whatever, or green hotels or pink hotels, that you could actually buy that file from Monopoly. It has the DRM, so you can't share it out with other people. It's proprietary. I mean, sure, people will still find a way to get around it and so on and so forth, but it makes it all of a sudden a viable business option, and if it's foolproof, I think then all of a sudden you're at the point where every home will have one,
Yeah.
But
the future is interesting.
It is. But my mom can't worry about the whether the extruder is getting hot enough. You know what I mean, or whatever, the base plate, and buttering a base plate or hairspraying it, or you know what I mean. They gotta figure out some of that kind of stuff. But anyway. We are at about the 28-minute mark right now by my math, and I don't want to let this go on too long. I asked people online about how long a podcast should be, and the consensus seems to be about the length of a dog walk. So, 30 minutes seems to be a good number. First of all, thank you, Nick and Adam, for jumping on and just kind of hanging out. Like I said, this is sort of a beta run, but if you guys are so inclined, we'd love to do this again with you sometime in the future.
Sure.
And all right, I'll see you guys tomorrow. And given that we're going into conference season, you guys want to throw out a few plugs of where we can find you next? Nick, you want to give a shout out or anything?
Yeah. I will be at McCall, my state conference, in March. I'm going to be in Colorado doing some work down there as well. And you can always get my book. I'll plug my book.
That's right.
Here, Makerspaces, for anyone out there looking to start Makerspaces, you can pick my book and enjoy all the wonderful nerdy references that can be found. And that's it. And ISTE is the big one, coming up. I've got 3 panels, 1 presentation, and I think some other things involving, I think, both of you guys at various points. So, yeah.
And I will say, awesome. I love having read the early copy of the book. I love the fact it is active learning. It is not a book that you just sit around and read. It's something that you read and then you do, and then you come back to it, and then you reflect, and so on.
It's awesome. It's funny because my son got a journal recently called Wreck This Journal, and it has some of the same like really fun idea where this page is for your sketch and you come back. I love that. I thought that was brilliant. I'm going to be doing a bunch of conference stuff too, mainly sharing Breakout EDU with more folks, which is super fun. Steve, I think you and I will cross paths many times in the next few weeks. I have FETC, TCEA, other acronyms, the .edu conference down in Monterey, going to Common Sense Media event at Twitter, ISTE, more conferences than my wife wants to realize that I'm doing. But super excited to go and again, just be with awesome folks and share fun stuff.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to get to see you over at FETC, TCEA, and .edu, and then Nick, I'll see you over at McCall. And in between there, I'm going to be floating over at the ICE conference and the MACE conference, and I don't know, a few others that have a C and an E in there somewhere. It seems like most of them seem to. So, all right, well, thank you guys. Appreciate your hanging out with me. And for those of you that are watching at home or watching the archive later, if you have any feedback or if you enjoyed the show, this is all to be published over on Teach42 and put out through the podcast feed if I can figure out how to do that thing again. So let us know if you enjoyed it, and if you didn't, then stay silent. All right. Have a good night, guys, and thanks for joining again.
Thanks.